All right, Ellie, and we are live. Welcome everyone to another episode of our special needs weekly Facebook lives. If you guys been following us, you know that every week I try to bring a different professional here to talk about their area of expertise and add value to the special needs community, really helping the community thrive and do better overall. So this evening, I have the pleasure of having Ellie Holmberg here with us. You guys will be blown away by the stuff that she does and how she helps families of special needs children. So, if this is your first time here, make sure to like this video, leave a comment as we go along. Let us know how we're doing. If you have any questions, but most importantly, share this on your personal page so that your friends can see what we're doing here. And by doing that, we'll be able to reach even more families. So, Ellie, once again, welcome. So excited to have you here. I can't wait to hear the things you have to share with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Very good, very good. So we're gonna get started, and so now you guys, if you're watching this live, go ahead and type hashtag live so you know you're here with us live. But if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, and then we'll be able to acknowledge that you're here and give you a little heart on your comment. So Ellie, how did this whole thing with working with special needs and specifically parents of children with special needs? How did that start with you? I mean, tell us a little bit of your backstory there.
Yeah, so I have a few family members with special needs, and growing up, I always loved working with kids. So I was very eager to be the nanny on call for all of my family. And then when I was a little bit older, we had a family move into our neighborhood who had a daughter with autism. And I was lucky enough that I got to be her nanny for years, and I got to drive her to her therapies. I got to drive her to her specialized schools. And it was so special getting to know her, getting to know her family, and her sister as well. And so that's kind of where my passion for it took off. I saw that really special need, that special care, that special attention that she deserved. And so it was really, really hard when we left. I'm originally from Minnesota. So when we left Minnesota to come here, I really wanted to continue that passion of mine. So I worked with kids with autism for a while, and then got my MSW, my master's in clinical social work, to be able to provide mental health care. Originally, it started with kids. I was working at an intensive outpatient program for a while. Anybody with anything from autism, severe anxiety, depression, OCD, anything under that realm. And then once I did that for a while, I started getting to know the parents and seeing that the parental side of it was almost just as hard as being the kid with special needs. There was a lot of care that wasn't being offered to parents. So that's why I decided to kind of go this direction, help parents of kids with special needs, because it really is different than just being a general parent or a parent of somebody without special needs, because you take on a lot more roles as a parent of a special needs child.
Yeah, absolutely. And as parents, we tend to get so caught up and busy with just providing, basic health care to our children and really doing, all the million things that we do that we kind of tend to forget about ourselves, right? I mean, we kind of
Mm-hmm.
put ourselves, in the back and say, well, listen, I'll worry about me once my child is taken care of. And reality is it's a lifelong, journey. I mean, it'll never end. So at some point when a parent realizes that maybe their lifestyle or their circumstances are affecting their relationships or anything in their personal lives, uh, is that when a parent should contact you and start talking about some things that you can do, or do you think that any parent should really take a proactive approach and reach out to you like before they realize that they have some issues? I mean, what would you say that it's like the ideal time for?
The ideal time is now. Once you think about having a therapist, once you think that it would be helpful to get some additional help, that's the perfect time to reach out. We love when people reach out ahead of time before there's kind of everything on fire, but that's always easier said than done. And sometimes you don't know how bad it's going to get or the direction it's going. We have a lot of parents that come in who are just general parents. They found out they were pregnant. There's no special needs involved yet, and parenting is hard. So we have a lot of parents reaching out. And then once you get that phone call that there might be something else going on, their special needs, that's a really tough emotional toll that it can take on a parent, it can take on a couple, a family, because now it's different. You're parenting different. The books that you're reading are different. In my experience, parents with special needs kids always go above and beyond. So I know there's a lot of books. I know there's a lot of research being done.
And none of the
Um,
rules apply either, right? I mean, or very
yeah,
few of the rules apply. Right now, it's a whole different ball game, right?
right. It's kind of like you have to throw out all your old parenting books, or throw out almost all the advice from your friends and figure out where to go from here. And that's a really great time to reach out as well, just to help manage expectations, see how you're doing, kind of fix things before they're broken. And then, of course, there's never a bad time to reach out to for a therapist. So if there's something going on later and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I've been in this tunnel for a long time. I don't know who I am as a person. I don't even know if I get to be a regular human anymore." That's a really wonderful time that we can start building back your identity, figuring out who you're going to be as a parent, who you're going to be as a spouse, as a single parent, whatever it is. Once everything is already on fire, it's never too late to reach out. It's not like, "Oh, this is a really bad case. I can't help you here." There's always going to be something that we can do to move you a little bit closer to where you want to be.
And that's awesome. And if you're watching and you're just joining us now, I'm here with Ellie Holmberg, who's a psychotherapist, and she specializes in working with parents of children with special needs on all of the things that we parents go through raising a child with any kind of disability or special needs. So go ahead if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts on that. If you've been thinking about, are there people out there that can help me, just navigate this, as a parent. Now, Ellie is the person. So go ahead and drop any questions. We'll make sure to get to them before we're done here this evening. But Ellie, you touched on a point that I think is so important, which is once there's special needs involved, then those books and those guides, are not necessarily applicable anymore, right? And
Mhm.
I see that in my line of work, when we're dealing with financial planning and really building a strategy for a family to fund that lifetime of care and needs, which takes a lot of money. People tend to hear advice from the gurus on the internet with certain things that I personally don't even think they make sense for the regular person, much less
Mhm.
a parent of special needs, right? And so we have to be real careful with what's available out there and not really specific to our situation and our circumstances, right? And really take that into consideration. And so, um, but that's great. So now you have parents that are either going through a moment or who realize that they lost control of their own, emotional, or even, their lives in general. What does that look like? I mean, what can someone expect, say, if they reach out to you and say, Ellie, I think I may need some help, right? What does that
Yeah.
process look like?
Yeah, so people oftentimes reach out. I offer free 15-minute phone consultations so we can get to know each other a little bit better. So I will always answer the phone. Can't always promise it's going to be on the first try.
Okay. Because
But
you're busy,
I
which is a good thing. Yeah.
Yes, yes, but I promise to return the phone call so we can chit chat, figure out what you need. And then that first appointment is really building what you want therapy to look like. There's so many different avenues to go. Everyone, like you said, struggles with their own thing. There's going to be differences for each family unit, for each person, for each child. So some of it can be like behavioral skill building. So if you have a child who is acting out a lot, if they have something like ADHD, autism, even Down syndrome. Sometimes there's different behavioral things that we can focus on in that realm. So if there is something more concrete, as in like the parenting classes of like, okay, you learned how to change a diaper. Now you're going to learn how to handle a tantrum. And it
Mhm.
looks different when you have a child with special needs. So tailoring our conversation to your child, there's no copy and paste answer. I wish I could lecture you for the next hour and a half on how to handle a tantrum, but there's so many different ways to do that, and it looks different for each parent, each child. each family unit. So
So
we
it's
can
very
definitely.
individualized. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Got
Yeah. Everyone has their own path on how they got here in the first place too. So using that to our advantage, and we can focus on the parenting side, the parenting skill building, and then also building back your identity as a person. Being a parent, it's so hard to get caught up in, okay, now I'm a parent, but now you are also a full-time caregiver oftentimes. You probably have a job because having a child with special needs is very expensive. So navigating all of that, it's so easy to lose ourselves, it's easy to lose our relationships, it's easy to lose that family dynamic, those family values, and really starting from the ground up to build it up to whatever you want it to be, wherever you want to take it. So if it's more the skill building, we need some practical resources on how to parent better or parent differently, or how would you handle this, versus we can also go in and like, okay, who are you as a person? How are you doing? How are let's check in with your emotions. Or is there anxiety, depression? There's most of the time a little bit of everything.
right.
So it can really start wherever you want. Some people want to go 100% one direction or the other. But I am super flexible and I will take the lead of whatever you show up with. That's where we're going to start.
Got it. Got it. And I understand that you also work with some children and teenagers and even adults with special needs on some of the things that they may be faced with, right? So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how you can work with the actual child in that sense. I mean, dealing with the emotions and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a parent of a child with special needs is really hard. Being a person with special needs sometimes is even harder. And so, really taking that from the emotional standpoint, everything we do in my office is based around the mental health model. And so, if you are struggling with, let's say, Down syndrome, and you go to a public high school, sometimes kids start to get mean once they're in middle school, high school. It can take a toll on self-esteem, either saying, "I don't look like these other people, I don't act like these other people, what's going on?" Kind of setting in that anxiety, above and beyond just what a typical teenager or young adult or young child might have. So I really like working with the child on those kind of things because it can be really hard to go out in the world knowing that there's something a little bit different, whether you know the full extent or not, and really working from the ground up to build up that self-esteem, number one, but also helping the anxiety, the depression, other things that are coming up that just make it a little bit harder to live.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I totally get it. I mean, I have a son with special needs, and he is more physical than anything else. He has a skeletal dysplasia called achondroplasia, which is the most common type of dwarfism out there. So if you think if you're a Game of Thrones fan and you remember Tyrion Lannister, right, Peter Dinklage, the British actor, that's exactly what my son has. Now, besides short stature, there's all sorts of complications that come with it, including a lot of serious surgeries that many people with achondroplasia need to go through, like the surgery my son just went through a couple of weeks ago to correct something in the spine, deformity. 18 hours in the operating room.
Wow.
It was crazy. So, but I'm saying that because there's really no cognitive issues, if you will, or developmental concerns. So, which is a great thing for us. But on the other hand, he's 100% aware of the differences
Mhm.
and why. I mean, I can't tell you how many times we heard the question, why me, right? Luckily, we've been really good with him. He's in an environment that encourages acceptance. So he is now at a point where he understands that it's just what he looks like. It's not who he is. It's just what he looks like. But still, I mean, I can only imagine, even being the dad, I can even imagine what goes through his head and his heart, having to deal with it. So and I can imagine, like the children that you work with, the types of things that they tell you and how you help them really see that it's not the end of the world. Yeah, it's tough, but it doesn't have to be the end of the world. So what are some of the common things that you come across or situations or concerns, fears, anxiety from your younger, from your actual patients with special needs?
Yeah, most of it, I'd say 90% of it is self-esteem. It's kind of like that piece of, I want to go and do this, but I can't. I'm not super confident in myself. I don't know how other people are going to perceive me. That's a large part of what we work on. A lot of anxiety comes into it too, even just like, okay, now I'm scared to leave the house. What if someone makes fun of me? I can't go out and do the things that other kids are doing. And especially depending on how physical the special needs are, even just having a surgery too can impact that, even if it's just temporarily for kids who, for example, love to draw and now they're unable to do that. Even if it is temporary due to a surgery, that's still going to take a toll on your mental health, whether it's your self esteem of, I now can't do anything. I don't know what's wrong with me. Other kids could probably draw all day and now I can't, or even just that depression kind of setting in of like, I don't know who I am without this. This is
Mm,
really hard. This was my one activity that I like to do. This is what I got to do, and now I can't do that. And so having that being taken away from you, whether it is something that's more temporary, whether it's something more long term, that's a really hard thing to go through. And all of those anxieties, I mean, think of all the anxieties that you guys have as parents and having that set in on yourself of like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen when I get older? What's going to happen when my parents aren't around to take care of me? What's going to happen when I go off to college or get to high school or want to join the swim team and I'm unable to? And kind of working from that self-esteem part, um, finding out that you have special needs, putting yourself in situations with other kids who don't have special needs, or even that they do that are just different and things aren't clicking and winding up the way you want them to, it can be a really traumatic experience. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't recognize or put out there that, oh, it's okay. You just got to suck it up. You're really strong. You can get through it. And even with someone who is really strong, it can be really traumatizing to go through that kind of stuff on your own, whether it's with family or not. But to have that kind of trauma set in, and even as parents too, your whole life kind of
mhm.
gets turned upside down when you get those phone calls that something's a little bit different, or even later down the road, like having a surgery where it is maybe a little bit more unexpected or something that has to happen, but it's still a scary experience to go through. And I think those almost kind of like micro traumas kind of set in
Mm,
over time and it really builds up and it just gets your whole physiological senses all out of whack. Your body kind of carries that trauma and that
right,
anxiety.
right.
And I think it's really tough for families and especially kids to navigate that mental health side.
I got it, got it. And typically, when you have a new child that comes to you, the parents bring the child to you. Do you normally see that being initiated by the child, or is it mostly the parents that eventually realize that there's some issues and they just want to figure out what it is, or is the child sometimes vocalizing or expressing the need to go and talk to someone and address?
Yeah. It really depends. In my experience, it's almost 50-50. There's a lot more parents, initially that have been reaching out just to say like, "Hey, I don't think our little kid's doing very well at school. He's locking himself in his room a little bit more. Just he doesn't really seem like himself." Parents reach out in that sense. I think this new generation coming up has been really good about advocating for their needs, and I think social media, one of the really good things that has brought out of that is that there's more talk about mental illness and what that looks like. And I've had, I think the youngest child I had was like 9 or 10.
Mm,
And she went up to her mom and was like, I want to go see a therapist. I was
really?
like, most 9 or 10-year-olds, 20, 30 years ago didn't even know that there was therapy out there. And so
Right.
now having that, like, oh, my friend saw a therapist and they're having conversations about it. And so now they think like, okay, I want to see a therapist. I'm going to ask for what I want. So it's kind of 50-50 whether it's the parents reaching out or the kids now.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And so we're going to shift gears a little bit and kind of share some tips and that parents could use to really maybe help them pay more attention to some certain signs and whatnot. But I just want to ask everyone who's watching here, whether you're watching here live with us, which we really appreciate you, or if you're watching the replay, if you have any questions, make sure to put them in the comments. We'll try to get to them before we're done here today. But also go ahead and smash that share button. I mean, the special needs community needs to hear the message that amazing people like Ellie have to share, because we need support. I mean, we as parents, we need all the support we can get, and it's not always as easy to find it out there, right? So go ahead and share. And if you want to get closer to us, really have more access, be able to ask more questions, we do have a Facebook group. Some of you watching are inside that group already, but some of you are watching outside. Our special needs family planning and support Facebook group is for parents and caretakers of children with special needs only, right? So it's a safe place for you to join, ask your questions, share your experiences, get some advice, get some help, and really get some answers, really, right? So if you're interested in joining our group, it's completely free. So just let me know, or just type hashtag group, and I'll make sure to reach out to you and send you an invitation to join. So, all right, Ellie, I would really like to hear, and I know it's probably a very uh, broad question, but what are some of the signs or indications that child may be going through some stuff that she could benefit from talking to you? I mean, is it the same as any child without any type of a disability, or are there any specific signs that parents should be paying attention to?
A lot of the symptoms can overlap with anybody else who's experiencing any kind of special needs or mental health concerns. For specifically special needs children, I've noticed there's a lot more kids who like to isolate. So that feeling of like, oh, I just want to curl up in bed. I'm going to lock the door behind me. I'm not really going to do anything else. Kind of physically shutting down. That can be a really strong indicator that there's something else going on. I also think it's important to listen to what your kids say. Kids, a lot of times, will tell you a lot without telling you a lot. So I think listening to whether they're saying things like, oh, I'm just really having a bad day, or I'm so annoyed with you right now. A lot of times it comes out as irritability, and they're annoyed, they're angry, they're tired, um, kind of having that heightened sense that something's out to get them. They are unhappy, the world is against them, it's not going their way. And so a lot of times it starts by little complaints like, I'm annoyed, I don't want to do this, and trying to uncover where that's coming from. What does that mean? Most kids don't really appreciate the therapies and, physical therapy, occupational therapy, all of that stuff that you have to go through, and it can be really hard. But when the kid is starting to, every kid's gonna cry when they have to do stuff they don't wanna do, but if it's over the top, it's starting to be every time that they do it, it's something that they have to do. So you can't really just say like, "Oh, no, we can just quit. It's not that big of a deal." But it's something that they have to do. When they're complaining a lot more, they're starting to come home from those kind of things
Mm-hmm.
and not want to talk anymore. They've kind of shut down. I always tell parents, you know your kids best. So if you notice any changes like that, or even just changes in the way that they're talking about themselves, talking about the world, that's a really strong indicator that something has shifted. We might need some extra help.
Got it. Got it. So in a sense, just similar to any other child, but also a few things that are very specific. I know you mentioned, like if they go through a lot of PT or OT or physical therapy or occupational therapy, they may end up getting like frustrated or anxious and whatnot. And that actually reminded me, because I'm working on something that I'm building here, a presentation, and I collected a few pictures of my son. And when you mentioned, kids getting anxious with PT, it reminded me of a picture which I have here. So I'm just going to share it because I think it's the cutest thing ever. And he was still a baby when that was taken. So I'm just going to put it on a screen here so everybody can see how frustrated a child can get during a session of physical therapy. So he was still a baby, but just look at that face, right? That's like doing something you don't want to do right? Or being pushed when you don't want to be pushed. So uh, it's just like stuff that our kids go through on a daily basis, and we're not necessarily um, fully aware of everything that's going on. So I just saw a comment here. For some reason, the comments are not showing up here for us in the backstage, but I saw a comment that says, special people helping special needs children, angels. So thank you for that. That was Liam, who always watches our lives here.
I love it.
He supports the special needs community a lot. He loves what we're doing here as a group. So, absolutely. That's why whenever I come across someone as special as Ellie, I make sure to invite them to come live here with me and share the amazing work that they're doing. So really, really cool. So I guess the message is, if you're going through some rough times as a parent, or even if you believe that your child is going through tough times, there is hope, right? There are people like yourself who can work with parents and children and really ease that emotional pain, and alleviate the anxiety and the fears and the whatnot. And that's so awesome, Ellie. Really, really amazing what you're doing. So, why don't you share how people can get a hold of you if they want more information? I just put your website here on the screen so people can go ahead and visit. But what are some other ways that people can reach out to you if they want more information?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is a really good kind of crash course landing page for that. All of my contact information is on there. My email address is info at stillwater-therapy.com. I've noticed a lot of parents of special needs kids like to email instead of call, which is wonderful. My phone number as well is 813-803-0961. And people are welcome to text me as well with any questions that come up. If they want to schedule something, if they just want to touch base, see if we're a good fit together.
Yeah.
I always
Give me,
encourage
give me
people
that
to
number
reach
one
out.
more time, Ellie.
It's 813
Mm-hmm.
803
Okay.
0961.
0961. Got it. So I'm going to put it on the screen for a minute. So if you're watching this and you want to give Ellie a call, you can take a screenshot, or take a picture of the screen, save the number, call or text her, let her know that you saw her here, and then you like to have a conversation. And Ellie, you said that you do a first consultation with parents first. Is
Yep,
that what it looks like? So they'll
absolutely.
contact you, set up a 15-minute call with you where you
Yes.
go over some of the basics. Okay.
Yep. If you call me, we can usually do it right then and there. A lot of people like to schedule it and make sure they have a little bit of privacy or can at least run to their car for a little bit to
Right.
do something like that. And all of that you can schedule directly from my website. There's a lot of buttons on there for booking those appointments. You can also jump right into the first session if you are ready to go. But there's no harm in reaching out, especially for a free consultation. I'm happy to answer any questions and provide you as much information as I can.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic. So, like I said, we try to keep these within 30 minutes to be respectful of everyone's time, but also, our time, because we're all super busy taking care of
Absolutely.
our special people. And so we're coming to, I really need to figure out why comments are not coming into our platform here. So I'll work on that for next week. I did see a couple of comments inside our group and also in other places that we're streaming this, but we'll make sure to get to all of your questions and concerns that way. But before we wrap up, Ellie, I always like to ask our guests here to leave our viewers, a message. It could be, a final tip, or some resources, or maybe that one thing that a parent will hear tonight and really go to bed, tonight feeling hopeful. Anything that you want to share before we come to a close.
Yeah, I think the number one thing that I hope I can get everyone to understand is that it's never too late to reach out. It's never too early to reach out, and it's never wrong to reach out. There's not a whole lot of risk in just sending me a text, an email, sending a phone call, whatever it is. Then we can chat and see if I can be what you need or help you find another therapist, whatever it is. There's never anything wrong with reaching out for help.
That's awesome. So it's never too soon or it's never too late, right? So it's always the
Yep,
right time.
it's
Whenever you
always the
feel
right
like
time.
you need help, is the right time. So that's awesome. Ellie, thank you so very much for your time. I hope everyone watching this got a ton of value. If you think that it might be worth 15 minutes of your time to have a conversation with Ellie and see, if she might be a good fit to work with you, then go ahead and do that. We're here to help you. We're here to support you. We're here to empower you, special needs parents, to really live a better life with less fears, less anxiety, and more joy, right? Because we're parents, we're
Absolutely.
people, we're humans. I mean, we like to do all of the things that everybody else likes to do, and it's because of people that work in the community that we're able to do that. So once again, thanks a lot, Ellie. Thanks everyone for watching, and until next week. I have someone very special coming next week, like I always do. So we're going to be talking about something that's extremely important for parents, especially if your child is currently receiving government benefits and services, or if they may be able to, or if they may qualify to receive them in the future. You do not want to miss next week's live. But once again, but that's next week. So we're done for this week. Thanks again, Ellie, and I'll see everybody next week.
Thanks so much for having me.